Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're talking about one of the most shocking and heartbreaking stories in 90 Day Fiancé history. Jenny Slatten and Sumit Singh were once seen as the perfect example of love beating all the odds. But behind the scenes, something much darker was happening. According to people close to the situation, Sumit was secretly seeing other women. He wasn't just a husband, he was living a double life. He had secret dinner dates and late-night meetups that showed a completely different side of him. And it didn't stop there. Sources say Sumit also racked up nearly $270,000 in online gambling debt. When he couldn't pay it back, a lawsuit was filed and he ended up getting arrested. Jenny, heartbroken by the lies and financial mess, made the hardest decision of her life. She divorced Sumit. But Jenny's story didn't end there. In a twist no one expected, she found love again and got engaged to a man named Jacob, starting a whole new chapter in her life. So get comfortable. This is a roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, and a surprising new beginning. Before all the drama, there was love. And it was a love that touched fans all over the world. Jenny Slatten, a kind woman from California, met Sumit Singh, a younger man from India, through social media. What started as simple chats soon turned into something much deeper. Even though they had almost a 30-year age gap, they found comfort in each other's words and hope in each other's presence. Their connection grew stronger, and Jenny decided to take the biggest step of her life. She left her home, family, and everything familiar in the U.S. to live in India with the man she loved. Fans of 90 Day Fiancé. The other way followed their journey, the cultural differences, Sumit's disapproving family, and constant challenges. Jenny and Sumit seemed to face everything with strong love. Jenny battled loneliness, isolation, and money troubles in a foreign country just to be with Sumit. And Sumit promised her a life full of love. They eventually got married, proving their critics wrong. To many viewers, Jenny and Sumit gave hope. They seemed to show that love could survive anything: distance, age, culture, and even family rejection. Their story felt inspiring, emotional, and real. But once the cameras were gone, the truth started to come out, something no one expected. At first, Jenny believed their marriage was built on trust. She gave up everything to be with him: her comfort, her stability, even her relationships in the U.S. She believed their love could survive anything. But soon, little things started to seem off. Late-night phone calls, Sumit wanting more privacy, and excuses to leave the house at strange hours. Jenny noticed he was acting different, distant, distracted, and no longer as caring. His sweet words turned into vague answers. At first, she thought he was just stressed. She told herself that all marriages have hard times. She wanted to believe in him. But behind closed doors, rumors were spreading. Neighbors said they had seen Sumit out with other women, more than once, at local restaurants. Private sources said Sumit was living a double life. He was meeting women in secret while telling Jenny he was working late or hanging out with friends. Jenny couldn't believe it. She had stood by him through so much: family rejection, cultural challenges, and criticism. The idea that he could cheat on her was painful to even think about. But the signs were clear. Friends started asking quiet questions. Why was Sumit always missing at night? Why did he take his phone everywhere, even into the bathroom? Why did his stories always sound too well prepared? The rumors got louder. People started sharing screenshots of messages Sumit allegedly sent late at night. Photos came out of him at dinner with women Jenny didn't know. Each piece of evidence cracked the image of their happy marriage. Jenny tried to ignore the doubt. She told herself people were just jealous of their love story. But deep down, she was starting to question everything. And soon, the truth would come out loud and clear. The rumors weren't just talk. They were the beginning of something much worse. Jenny couldn't ignore it anymore. The late-night disappearances, the phone's secrecy, the distant behavior, everything started making sense. Sources close to the couple said Sumit wasn't just seeing one other woman. He was seeing multiple women at the same time. While Jenny thought she was his only love, Sumit was building a web of lies. One woman said they spent time together in quiet cafes outside of town, and Sumit promised her a future together. Another woman said they went to restaurants, always sitting in dark corners to avoid being seen. A third person said they saw him at a mall holding hands and laughing with a younger woman, like they were dating. It all showed the same thing. Sumit had two lives. In one, he was Jenny's loving husband for the cameras. In the other, he was a smooth-talking bachelor with other women who had no idea what was really going on. For Jenny, it was crushing. She had left everything behind in California to be with him. She had supported him through all the hard times. And now she found out he had been sharing his time and affection with other women. It was a deep betrayal. What shocked people even more was how bold Sumit had become. He wasn't even trying to hide it that well. He was seen in public places, restaurants, busy streets, and he even used his own phone to send secret messages. It was like he thought he wouldn't get caught. But the proof just kept coming. Text messages showed him making sweet promises to other women. People confirmed they had seen him in intimate moments. The perfect image of Jenny and Sumit's love was falling apart. And the cheating wasn't even the worst part. There was something even darker, something about money. As more details came out, one thing stood out. Sumit's secret dinner dates all around the city. These weren't just random slip-ups. These were well-planned meetings. People saw him at hidden cafes, rooftop lounges, and quiet restaurants where couples go to avoid attention. He usually arrived first, looked around carefully, and sat in a corner table. Then a woman would show up, sometimes dressed casually, sometimes dressed up for a date. They'd talk, laugh, and stay for hours. A restaurant owner who didn't want to be named said Sumit came often with different women. He always asked for the table farthest from the entrance and never stayed less than 2 hours. It was clear he didn't want to be seen. Another person described seeing Sumit holding a woman's hand while Jenny was home waiting for him. That image stuck with people who once admired him. Meanwhile, Jenny started noticing things too. Sumit would leave at night, saying he had to work, visit family, or run errands. He came home late, smelling like food or perfume. When she asked questions, his answers sounded too rehearsed, like he had practiced them. It was clear these weren't just business dinners or friendly outings. These were dates that he was hiding from Jenny. But they were obvious to anyone paying attention. Sumit's confidence started to grow. He became bolder, less careful, and more reckless. He thought he could keep his marriage with Jenny while also having romantic relationships with other women. But what he didn't know was that the consequences of his choices were about to grow into something much bigger. Behind the candlelit dinners and sweet promises, Sumit was hiding another secret. This one didn't just put his marriage at risk, it could ruin his whole future. It had nothing to do with love, and everything to do with money, and a dangerous addiction that would soon destroy everything. While whispers and stories from people hinted at cheating, it was the digital trail that confirmed the truth. For a long time, Jenny completely trusted Sumit. She never looked through his phone or questioned who he talked to. She believed that love and respect meant giving him space. But as the rumors got worse, Sumit's phone started to seem suspicious. According to people close to the couple, Sumit guarded his phone like it held his entire life. He even slept with it under his pillow, took it to the bathroom, and got defensive anytime Jenny asked simple questions. His behavior made things seem even more suspicious. Then the leaks started. Screenshots began to go around among people they knew, showing Sumit chatting with other women. The messages weren't innocent. They were full of pet names, heart emojis, and plans to meet in secret. One message said, "I can't wait to see you tomorrow night. Don't worry, she'll never know." But the most shocking proof came in the form of pictures. Leaked photos showed Sumit having dinner at fancy restaurants with women who were clearly not Jenny. In one photo, he's leaning across the table, smiling, and holding the hand of a woman wearing a red dress. In another, he's walking out of a mall carrying shopping bags next to a younger woman. These pictures spread quickly, not just among people they knew, but all over fan forums online. The couple who used to be seen as proof that love could survive anything were now in the middle of a scandal. Fans who had once admired Jenny and Sumit's strong bond started to question everything. Jenny, heartbroken, finally confronted Sumit. But instead of comforting her, he made excuses. He said the photos were innocent and the messages were being misunderstood. But there was just too much proof to ignore or explain away. Each message and photo showed a man who had promised his whole heart to Jenny, but was secretly living another life behind her back. As painful as the cheating was, that wasn't the end. The same phone that exposed his affairs would reveal something even worse, a hidden addiction that would drag both Jenny and Sumit into chaos. Even though the leaked messages and photos showed Sumit had betrayed Jenny's trust, he was still hiding one more secret. A secret that didn't just threaten their marriage, it could ruin his whole future. It started small. Jenny noticed strange charges on their shared bank account. Small amounts of money were missing, and there were payments she didn't recognize. When she asked Sumit, he gave vague answers, saying he was paying back a friend or covering small expenses. Jenny wanted to trust him, so she didn't press him too hard. But something serious was happening behind her back. According to private sources, Sumit had developed a serious addiction to online gambling. What started as just playing games like poker and roulette turned into a deep obsession. He stayed up late at night making bets, always thinking the next one would fix everything. The excitement of gambling became his way to escape from stress, responsibilities, and the guilt from cheating. But like all addictions, it quickly became a trap. Every time he won, he bet more. And every time he lost, he tried to win it all back. The bets got bigger. The losses got worse. In just a few months, Sumit built up nearly $270,000 in gambling debt. People he owed money to started calling. The websites froze his accounts until he paid. He borrowed money from friends, pawned valuable items, and even used money that Jenny thought they were saving for their future. For Jenny, finding out was devastating. She had moved to India, believing they were building a stable life together. But she found out that Sumit had not only lost their savings, he had destroyed their future security. The addiction explained a lot. The late-night phone use, his secretive behavior, and the money that kept disappearing. In fact, some of the meetings at restaurants weren't even with women. They were with people tied to his gambling debts. But gambling doesn't stay a secret for long. It leaves a clear trail. And soon, creditors and the law started to get involved. What started as a personal issue was now turning into a public problem, and no excuse could hide it anymore. Jenny had already been crushed by Sumit's affairs. Now, she was facing a huge financial disaster that could destroy everything she had worked for. The next chapter would be even more painful. Lawsuits, legal issues, and the complete breakdown of the life they had promised to build together. The truth about Sumit's gambling addiction was horrible, but the size of the damage was even worse. This wasn't just a few bad bets. It wasn't a small phase that could be ignored. It was a full-blown disaster that had spun out of control. According to financial records shared by private sources, Sumit had built up nearly $270,000 in gambling debt. The numbers were shocking. He had lost huge amounts across online poker games, digital roulette apps, and risky sports betting sites. At first, he managed to hide it. He borrowed money from friends, saying he just needed a short-term loan. He pawned jewelry and electronics. He even convinced Jenny to take money from her small savings account, telling her it was for bills or emergencies. But debt doesn't stay hidden forever. Soon, the people he owed started contacting him constantly. He got nonstop messages demanding payments. Some emails warned of legal trouble. And eventually, some creditors even came to their home, threatening consequences if he didn't pay. Jenny was horrified when one man finally came to their door, asking for money and holding paperwork with Sumit's name and the amount he owed overdue penalties. It was undeniable. Jenny's world collapsed in that moment. She had left her country, her comfort, and her stability to build a future with Sumit, only to realize that he had gambled away not just their money, but her trust. The $270,000 wasn't just a number. It represented years of struggle, sacrifice, and survival that had been erased by reckless choices. The couple who once symbolized perseverance on 90 Day Fiancé were now drowning in debt, scandal, and betrayal. And as if the debt itself wasn't enough, the legal consequences soon followed. Online gambling platforms filed lawsuits against Sumit for unpaid balances. The case escalated quickly, dragging him into a legal battle that would expose his darkest secrets to the world. The man who once charmed millions. of fans with his devotion to Jenny was now facing the harsh reality of debt, lawsuits, and eventual arrest. And for Jenny, the heartbreak was only beginning, because love can forgive mistakes. But could it survive betrayal, deception, and financial ruin on this scale? Debt collectors can be avoided for a while. Phone calls can be ignored, emails deleted, even friends turned away. But the legal system is harder to escape. As Sumit's gambling debts reached their peak, online platforms and creditors decided they had waited long enough. Formal complaints were filed. Summons arrived at his door. What had once been whispered gossip and quiet threats was now written in black and white. Singh was being sued. The lawsuits were relentless. Each one detailed unpaid balances, broken agreements, and evidence of his gambling transactions. The courts began to build a case against him, and his name started appearing on official records, no longer as a beloved reality TV star, but as a man drowning in financial ruin. Jenny watched in shock as lawyers arrived with documents she could barely understand. She had never imagined that her love story, once celebrated on television, would end with court papers piling on the dining table. The shame was unbearable. Neighbors whispered, friends distanced themselves, and online fans who had once cheered for Jenny and Sumit began flooding forums with outrage, but the worst was yet to come. When Sumit failed to appear for one of his hearings, authorities escalated the matter. A warrant was issued for his arrest, and soon the unthinkable happened. Singh, the man Jenny had fought for so fiercely, was taken into custody. According to eyewitnesses, the arrest was humiliating. Officers arrived at their residence, handcuffing him in front of stunned neighbors. Jenny, overwhelmed and trembling, could do nothing but watch as her husband was led away. The image of Sumit, once her dream partner, now reduced to a criminal in handcuffs, broke something deep inside her. The arrest made headlines. Tabloids plastered his mug shot across the covers. Fans who once defended him were now calling for Jenny to leave. The scandal was no longer private. It was a public spectacle dissected by strangers around the world. In custody, Sumit faced questions about not only his gambling debts, but also his double life. The leaked messages, the restaurant sightings, the financial ruin, all of it became part of the narrative. For Jenny, this was the breaking point. She had endured the whispers of infidelity. She had forgiven the lies. She had even tried to understand the gambling. But watching her husband taken away in handcuffs was the final straw. The man she had sacrificed everything for had not only betrayed her heart, but destroyed the very foundation of their lives together. And in that moment, Jenny knew their marriage could not survive this. For Jenny Slatten, the sight of Sumit being led away in handcuffs was more than just a shocking moment. It was the collapse of her entire world. This was the man she had sacrificed everything for. She had left her home in California, distanced herself from friends and family, endured loneliness, culture shock, and public judgment, all to build a life with Sumit. And now that life lay in ruins, in the days following his arrest, Jenny withdrew from the world. Neighbors described her as barely leaving the house. Curtains drawn tight, lights dimmed. Friends who tried to visit said she was unrecognizable. Her normally warm and hopeful demeanor replaced with silence, tears, and exhaustion. According to those close to her, Jenny struggled with feelings of guilt. She questioned whether she had ignored the warning signs, whether she had been blind to the truth that was always in front of her. Every leaked photo, every whispered rumor, every suspicious moment replayed in her mind like a cruel film. The emotional toll was devastating. Jenny had always been the one who believed in love against all odds. She had defended Sumit when others doubted him, stood by his side when even his family resisted, and reassured herself that their bond was worth the fight. To now realize that he had betrayed her trust so completely, both romantically and financially shattered not just her heart, but her sense of identity. Confidential sources revealed that Jenny confided in a close friend. "I don't even know who he is anymore. The man I thought I loved doesn't exist. Her nights were filled with restless tossing, her days with silent tears. She lost weight, her voice grew faint, and her once cheerful smile disappeared. The emotional breakdown was visible to anyone who had known the Jenny who once glowed with hope. And yet, even in her pain, Jenny faced an impossible decision. Would she continue to fight for Sumit as she had done for years? Or would she finally accept that the man she once called her soulmate had destroyed any chance of redemption? In her heart, Jenny already knew the answer. Their rest had not just broken her spirit. It had broken their marriage beyond repair. The woman who had been willing to risk everything for love was now preparing for the hardest step of her life, letting go. When news of Sumit's arrest spread, the impact was felt far beyond Jenny. Jenny's family, her family in the U.S., was devastated. Jenny's daughter especially felt betrayed and angry, saying she had warned her mother not to trust Sumit blindly. Sumit's family, Sumit's parents, once against Jenny because of her age, now faced public shame. Neighbors and relatives criticized how Sumit had ruined both his marriage and his family's honor. Friends and community. Friends split between comforting Jenny and admitting they had long seen red flags. Locals who once admired the couple now whispered in pity and judgment. Fans worldwide, fans reacted with shock and heartbreak. Online debates erupted. Some blamed Sumit. Others questioned Jenny. Hashtags shifted from celebrating their love to demanding justice for Jenny. Under this immense pressure, Jenny, broken and humiliated, prepared to make a life-changing decision. The whispers of infidelity, the crushing weight of gambling debts, the humiliation of Sumit's arrest, all of it had brought Jenny to a breaking point. For weeks, she battled with her emotions, torn between heartbreak and survival. But eventually, she made the hardest decision of her life. Jenny Slatten filed for divorce. It wasn't a quiet choice made behind closed doors. Jenny, who had once defended Sumit to the world, chose to share her truth openly. She issued a statement that shocked fans and broke hearts across the globe. I loved Sumit with all of my heart. I gave up my life to be with him, but love cannot survive betrayal, lies, and destruction. Today, I am choosing myself. Today, I am divorcing Sumit. Singh. The announcement sent shock waves through both her personal circle and the 90-Day Fiancé fan community. For years, Jenny had stood as the unwavering supporter of her marriage, even when critics doubted them. For her to finally walk away signaled to just how deep the betrayal had cut Jenny's pain. The divorce wasn't just a legal process. It was an emotional earthquake.